men like us can grow rasta.
Charlie, no be small. It got to a point we were looking annoying. They sack you from the house. Master, go and cut your hair. Then you are scaring the children.
Yeah.
Anyway, good morning, Kojo. Good morning, Godfred.
Good morning, Bernard. Always a pleasure.
There's a lot to do today. We're jumping into the headlines straight ahead.
Yes.
What do you have for me?
The Ghanaian Times. Court throws out Bishop Obinim, orders him to pay 1.6 million Ghana cedis to the state. Election 2020. EC to compile new voters register last week in June. Clearing agent 44 in court for duping state of 16.4 million Ghana cedis. And reopen schools gradually. This is the CRI.
Front page of the Daily Graphic. Voter registration begins June. 33,367 centers for exercise. The story of the clearing agent also on the front page of the paper. And Parliament divided over results of COVID-19 test.
Now the Chronicle, COVID-19 test. Muntaka blows cover of Parliament. Nigerian offers $5,000 bribe to enter Ghana. I'll be guided by my conscience. This is Justice Yoni Kolendi. And Ghana Gas punches holes in ASEP's analysis.
Front page of the Daily Guide paper, voters register still here. NDC position outrageous, says the AG. Give Woyome property to state, according to the security minister. Lebanese rubbishes Malians' claims.
Now, if you check the new Crusading Guide, EC sets June for registration. CID petitioned over fraudulent sale of BVL properties. COA FS sets records straight, and Kofredi Abu chief fights MC over boundary demarcation.
The EC story also makes it to the front page of the Daily Statesman this morning, Bernard.
Okay. Now, the Business Finder, 145% hike in air freight charges. Vegetable fruit exporters in limbo. EcoBank named most innovative bank in Africa, and banks revise loan budget downwards.
Front page of the BNFT paper, agribusinesses lose 61% of monthly revenue to COVID-19 according to a survey. I'll give you details later. Government to expedite development, bank for growth, and the Ghana Gas reaction to ASEP is also on the front page of the BNFT.
I'm taking you online. CitiNewsroom.com has a lot of stories, starting with Tekpe challenges Ghana's debt figures published by BOG. Tension builds up at Kolebu over CEO's retirement age. We will contest EC's decision to proceed with voters' registration, according to Asedun Ketia. And lead by example, release MP's COVID-19 test result at Blackwater to Parliament. Other stories, 186 new COVID-19 cases, push Ghana's count to 7,303. Recoveries now 2,412. Other stories which will be of interest to you, organize SHS entrance exams for JHS final year students instead of BC. Professor Day, very radical idea. It's worth considering. And IPAC has lost relevance. EC doing nothing. EC doing things anyhow. Now, citybusinessnews.com. Minerals Commission to distribute over 1 million seedlings to Galamsey areas. This is palm seedlings. Also, new policy to reduce Ghana's reliance on imports is needed. This is Alasan Nandani. And LPG from Ghana Gas more expensive than imported product, COPEC says. If you go to myjoyonline.com, 6-year-old boy allegedly electrocuted by TV antenna. Also, Kennedy Japan sued for defamation. Majority leader calls for MP's ex gratia to be reviewed. And traders break COVID-19 directive to storm Wednesday market. GNA leads with political parties back compilation of new voters roll led by the MPP. Ghana's COVID-19 case surpasses 7,000 and 4 new justices join the Supreme Court. Star FM, EC to start compiling new register in June. Will resist NIA's mop-up exercise. This is John Buedu. And man jailed 10 years for defiling 15-year-old girl. Now, if you go to Nigeria, their cases are now 8,733. They have 389 new COVID-19 cases. Their health minister says on Channels News that increasing cases of COVID-19 may overwhelm our system. This is the health minister of Nigeria speaking. Now, they have 8,733, long overtaking Ghana. In East Africa, we're told South Sudan's vice president has contracted COVID-19. Yeah. He is the 5th senior government official to get the virus. Meanwhile, South Africa reports highest daily cases. This is Western Cape, where there's Cape Town. Highest daily cases yesterday in South Africa. Now, let me take you to the rest of the world. I think the big story is about the US. U.S. coronavirus deaths hit 100,000. Lockdowns eased. Live updates. This is Al Jazeera. They're also telling us that Brazil's COVID-19 death toll also surpasses 25,000. Like, this is just unbelievable. Now, the other story is that nothing but sound bites. UK's Boris Johnson left isolated. It looks like he's not getting a lot of love. CNN is also leading with coronavirus for UK's 100,000 deaths. Although there's an interesting story there. Why barber shops matter in the community.
Oh, yes.
This is the BBC. And I think Kojo was talking about cutting his hair.
It's a witness.
Yeah. And then, so those are the stories. I don't know where you guys want to start. There's so much elections.
I think we should start with the EC.
Okay.
And come to the other issues.
Good. Let's go to what the EC is saying.
Center spread of the Times. Election 2020. EC to compile new voter register last week in June. Jonathan Dunker writes for the Times that the compilation of a new voter register will begin in the last week of June and end in the last week of July. The Electoral Commission has confirmed ahead of the announcement of the precise dates. However, the over 33,000 registration centers will be divided into clusters with strict adherence to COVID-19 hygienic protocols to ensure swift and safe registration exercise. The Deputy Commissioner of the EC, Dr. Bosman Asari, disclosed this to the Ghanaian Times in an interview after yesterday's IPAC meeting.
I have a lot of reactions. Godfrey has the same as well.
So just a bit more detail on what will happen with the EC. According to them, the registration will be carried out in 5 phases over a 38-day period in 33,367 registration centers. Now, according to them, the EC has also put in place necessary measures to curb the spread of coronavirus at the registration centers. So, and the national COVID-19 team have been impressed with the safety measures proposed by the EC. Now, if you go to the Daily Guide's front page, the NDC position outrageous on the voters register, according to the Attorney General. And details of the story are by Jibril Abdul Razak, who says that the Attorney General responded to claims by the NDC that the Electoral Commission is enjoined to compile the register of voters only once at the inception of the Constitution and not on multiple occasions, describing the position of the party as patently absurd, far-fetched, outrageous, and erroneous. In its response to a suit filed at the Supreme Court by the NDC over the compilation of a new voters register, the AG insisted that a number of reliefs claimed by the NDC are not cognizable, adding that the NDC has no course of action as there is no enactment properly so called in respect of which the action has been instituted.
So actually, that's in reaction to what I was going to read to you, that the General Secretary of NDC, Asiedun Ketia, says the party will challenge the EC's decision to compile a new voters register. He says the NDC will do all it can to prevent the EC from leading political parties and Ghanaians into a dangerous and confusing situation. Now, Asiedun Ketia accused the EC of turning the forum of IPAC into one where it only informs election stakeholders of its decisions rather than a forum that allows for dialogue and consensus. Now, other headlines from different parts of the world. GNA has a lead story that says political parties back compilation of new voters roll, and it says that reps of political parties who participated in the IPAC meeting gave strong backing to the decision by the EC to compile a new voters roll. The issues that came up for discussion at the meeting included its preparations, precautionary measures, the cluster system of registration, mopping up exercise, time frame, special arrangements for the vulnerable groups, and identification to be used for the registration. And then they now give details of what, for example, the MPP, the CPP, and then the PNC said at the various meetings. Okay, so I think that's the first round of stories.
Yeah, now can I go to COVID?
Yes.
Okay, let me take you to Parliament then.
Yes. Before you do, let me give you the latest case count, just
Okay.
for Shege reasons. Now, 186 new cases. Ghana's count is 7,303. Recoveries 2,414. So, story says, according to the Ghana Health Service website, 2412 persons who tested positive for COVID-19 have recovered. We have 186 new COVID-19 cases, with our total count now 7,303. And then the Greater Accra has 140 of the 168. Central Region 23, Ashanti 14, Eastern 9. And then we have conducted 205,890 COVID-19 tests. Greater Accra listed 5,148 cases. Ashanti 1,099, Central 334, Western Central 360, forgive me. Western 344. So those are the numbers.
Our active case count now is the second highest since we started recording data on COVID-19 in Ghana.
Yeah, so if you take away the recovered, which is
And the
2,000,
deaths, yes.
and the deaths, which are about 32,
Yeah.
you still have a sizable number of over 4,000
Yes.
who are active.
4,800 and
Now,
something.
take me to
Yeah.
Parliament.
Okay, in Parliament, the brouhaha over who has what regarding COVID is still raging, and says that there's been disagreement in Parliament over the results of COVID-19 tests conducted on members of Parliament and staff of the Parliamentary Service. Last Tuesday, Director of Public Affairs at Parliament, Ms. Keitado, issued a statement denying reports that some MPs and staff of the House had tested positive for the virus. On the same day, the Majority Leader, Mr. Osei Mesabos, also said the reports that the MPs and some parliamentary staff had tested positive for the virus were merely speculative journalism. However, yesterday, the Minority Chief Whip, Alhaji Muntaka Mohammed Mubarak, disputed the claim by Parliament's Public Affairs Directorate and the Majority Leader. Quote, what happened in Parliament and what you heard about MPs testing positive for COVID-19 is the fact.
That's all.
It is the truth. He stood his ground.
That's all.
They could have said many MPs and staff had not yet started. We can keep calm, and by Friday we'll know the extent of our problem. And hopefully by Monday and Tuesday we should have known the full results, which will communicate officially as the position of Parliament. But to deny was to smear Parliament, and in my view, that was not in the national interest. So I have to speak in the national interest to the public that this is not true. Now, the Speaker has also entered the fray.
What is this saying?
And addressing legislators later yesterday, the Speaker, Professor Michael Kwe, stated that individuals and institutions must refrain from unilaterally putting out in the public domain the names of persons who had tested positive for COVID-19 in Ghana.
Now, on Muntakai's statement, let me give you another angle. This is the Chronicle. He added that some of them had called for mass testing of Parliament, the executive, and the judiciary to deal with stigma, for people to see that the process was not a hell. That's how the paper puts it. So to conceal this, for me, and I quote, it's an abominable offense because it is not in the national interest to do that. Because one, you'll be endangering the lives of other members of Parliament, other staff, and two, you tell the people the truth and the steps being taken so that they will learn not to stigmatize people.
Still from Parliament, lead by example. Release MP's COVID-19 test results at Blackwell to Parliament. MP for Norton, Samuel Kujata Blackwell, has called for the full disclosure of the COVID-19 test results of MPs. There should be nothing to hide. Let's lead by example in a way that avoids entrenching stigmatization, which is becoming a major challenge in the national coronavirus response. Many world leaders and institutions of repute have not concealed the results of their tests. The Ghanaian Parliament shouldn't be an unworthy exception, Blackwell noted on a Facebook post. And his comments come at a time when the leadership of Parliament has been accused of lying to Ghanaians following reports that some 2 MPs and 13 parliamentary staff had been infected with COVID-19.
Now, let's talk education, Bernard.
Yes.
Reopen schools gradually. This is the Child Rights International. Now, it's on page 14 of the Times. The story says the Executive Director of Child Rights International, Mr. Bright Appiah, has called on the government to move slowly in its decision to reopen schools on the mass level. According to him, the government should adopt a gradual approach where final year students due for exams should first be allowed to resume classes as a test case for broader school reopening. Additionally, students who are due for their turn on the double-track system must also be allowed to resume school since they had a backlog of activities to undertake.
Now, Professor Stephen Adey is actually suggesting something quite radical. Organize SHS entrance exams for JHS final year students instead of a BCE. Now, it says a renowned education professor, Stephen Adey, has recommended an entrance exam for junior high school students to qualify them into SHS. This recommendation is part of others he's been proposing as possible options government could adopt as part of a roadmap for reopening of schools. Now, the president on March 15 directed the closure of schools to curb the spread of COVID-19. Concerns on when and how to reopen schools have dominated major discussions. The renowned educationist told Citi FM's Point Blank that the entrance exam he's proposing for final year JHS students should be limited to 2 subjects. For the JHS, they are not as significant. Now, we basically have basic education school children in the wholesale to the secondary level. So it's not that difficult because we can do normal common entrance exam on only 2 subjects, probably maths and English, so we can proceed for them to go to SHS. So lots of discussion, lots of debate on this issue.
Okay, let's just run through some quick stories surrounding people who having to make payments to the state. I think Ujo has one on Ubinim. I also have one on a clearing agent who's supposed to pay some money, and then Woyo Miss House. So let me give you the one on the clearing agent first, and then Kujo can give us Ubinim. So on page 44 of the Daily Graphic, the Ghana Revenue Authority has charged a freight forwarder whose company allegedly suppressed custom duties to the tune of 16 million Ghana cedis between 2014 and 2019 to stand trial at the Criminal Division of the High Court in Accra. Francis Yao Terrison, 44, the the chief executive officer of Gatifax Logistics Limited, a clearing company located at the Kotoka International Airport, is facing 3 counts of falsification, alteration, and forgery of official documents, fraudulent evasion of customs duties and charges, and money laundering.
Still on
Yes.
payments.
Center spread of the Times. Court throws out Bishop Obinim, orders him to pay 1.6 million Ghana cedis to the state. Malik Suleiman arrives that an Accra High Court has dismissed an application in which Bishop Daniel Obinim, the head pastor of International Gospel Church, is challenging the decision of the Ghana Revenue Authority requiring him to settle a tax liability of 1.59 million Ghana cedis to the state. Pastor Obinim, the applicant, wanted the court to declare that the issuance and service on him to clear his tax liability is null and void. In his application to invoke the judicial review jurisdiction of the High Court, the international pastor denied any tax obligation by virtue of the fact that he had fully paid all his liabilities. But in its judgment delivered on May 13, Justice Doreen G. Boacheje, presiding, held that the GRA followed due procedure in determining and notifying the applicant of his tax liability.
Okay.
Now, if you go to page 6 of the Daily Guide, it says, give Woyome property to state, according to the security minister. The Ministry for National Security is proposing that some properties belonging to Alfred Agbesi Woyome be transferred to the state to offset the 51 million Ghana cedis fraudulently paid him as judgment debt. The ministry, in a letter signed by National Security Minister Abekanda Pan, addressed to the AG, said it is preferring the advice due to the difficulties the auctioneer is facing in the sale of the property. The letter further pointed out that potential buyers are staying away from the properties, some of which are located at Trasaco Valley, Accra, due to fears that they could lose them in the event there is a change of government.
Let's go to business.
Yes.
TechPed challenges Ghana's debt figures published by BOG. This is citybusinessnews.com. Former Finance Minister said TechPed says Ghana's total debt stock published by the BOG or Bank of Ghana does not reflect the true state of our indebtedness. Mr. TechPed argues that the country's debt to GDP is currently 63%, unlike the 59.3% published by the central bank. Now, the former finance minister said the figures the BOG put out have been underreported. He said the figure is different from what was presented to the IMF, which puts Ghana's debt at 236.1 billion cedis. Mr. Sekwe said the Bank of Ghana should have published the debt stock as was presented to the IMF recently when government applied for the emergency COVID-19
Now,
fund.
more on business. 145% hike in air freight charges. Vegetable fruit exporters in limbo.
Wow.
Isaac Edu writes for the Business Finder that in spite of the government's efforts to boost agricultural production and exports, farmers and exporters in the fruit and vegetable industry continue to grapple with teething challenges. Business Finder's interactions with players in the industry have revealed that, for instance, there's a 145% hike in air freight and cargo charges for fresh fruits and vegetables, and it is adversely impacting farmers and exporters of those perishable items. Now, President of the Vegetable Exporters and Producers Association of Ghana, Mr. Felix Kamasa, told this paper prior to the COVID-19 outbreak, exporters were charged $1.10 per kilo, but now they are being charged $2.7 per kilograms.
For vegetables.
Yeah.
So it's affecting their
And it's
export.
affecting their export. They're unable to export the amounts they want to export, and these are perishable, so it's
And-
putting them in trouble.
And the front page of the BNFT has a story that says agribusinesses lose 61% of monthly revenue. Details are on page 2. And according to the story, it's out of a report done by the Agribusiness Sector Survey Report 2020, authored by the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana. The report noted that small-scale agribusiness firms suffered the largest revenue shortfalls of about 77%, while large-scale firms suffered 55%, with medium-scale agribusinesses remaining in the middle with 75%. The report connected the shortfall in revenue of small-scale agribusinesses compared to larger sufferers with factors such as underdeveloped business linkages, weak incorporation of tech, poor raw material supply chain, and inventory management.
Okay.
But Bernard, the worrying story, however, is on page 3 of the same paper. New trawlers arrive from China as fisheries teeter on brink of collapse.
Oh, boy.
3 new trawlers have arrived in Ghana from China and been registered to the Ghanaian flag, despite a moratorium on new fishing vessels. Government's own fisheries management plan states that 48 trawlers are the most that the fishery industry can sustain, yet 76 trawlers were licensed at the end of 2019. Now, the new vessels were all built in China in 2016 and were all flying the Chinese flag before arriving in Ghana. It can, however, be revealed that they are now docked at Tema, registered under the Ghanaian flag, and awaiting licensing by the Fisheries Commission. It's quite a detailed story done by one Steve Trent.
Let me take you outside the country after Kojo does the rent story.
Yes, rents up 15 to 35% in Accra, Tema. This is the business finder.
Down or up?
Up.
Up.
Oh,
Up.
Oh, man. Have you heard of rents going down in this country
so I
before?
thought because of low demand. it
Oh,
would come
which
down.
low
Now,
demand?
the story says the cost of rent of rooms and some apartments in Accra and Tema have increased by between 15 and 35% in the last 2 years. This could be relatively better than between 2016 and 2017, when price of rooms or property for renting shot up between 30 and 60%. Checks by the business finder indicates that demand for 2-bedroom apartments and to some extent 1-bedroom and a hall accommodation are very high, particularly for young couples. Rent is very expensive in East Legon, Hacho, West Legon and Domipula too, compared to Malam, Bawi and some parts of Weja. Interestingly, Kaswa, which is in the central region but close to Accra, has seen rent going up significantly in the last 2 years by about 35%. And they say that popular consumer websites Tonaton and Jinjin confirmed the checks by Business Finder regarding chamber and hall and 2 bedrooms, which are mostly patronized by middle-income earners.
I want to take you around the world on COVID-19 because I'm very worried about what I'm reading.
What?
South Africa had the highest increase in daily cases yesterday. This is from the East African, the South African report. So South Africa on Wednesday reported 1,673 COVID-19 cases, the highest daily increase since the country reported its first case in early March. On Wednesday, the country's caseload had reached 25,937. The health minister said in a daily update. They have 28 new deaths, taking their total deaths to 552. Now, as if that's not worrying enough, other stories from the world. Al Jazeera, EU countries ban anti-malaria drug for coronavirus. European governments have halted the use of hydroxychloroquine in a blow to hopes for the treatment promoted by US president. Don't forget, we've given a company money to produce a lot of hydroxychloroquine. EU has banned the usage of that drug for coronavirus. US death toll has surpassed 100,000, and the country has 1.69 million confirmed cases. Brazil's death toll surpassed 25,000, says their health ministry. Deaths from the disease caused by coronavirus for the last 24 hours were 1,086. Number of cases rose by 20,599. So Brazil now has 411,000 cases. Now the number of cases in Arab Gulf region, including Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi, UAE, Bahrain, Oman, has passed 200,000. More than 5.6 million cases around the world. And while all this is going on, we are discussing reopening. Let's just pray we make the right decision. That's all we have time for the newspaper review today, unless you have a final thing to add.
Well, the final story here is about agribusiness, and people should watch out for our agribusiness forum, because the Chamber of Agribusiness says agribusiness faces post-COVID-19 distress. And you have a forum coming up next 2 weeks.
It's part of the Citi Business Festival, which starts on the 1st of June with a look at how to get your business back after COVID-19. Thank you, gentlemen.
Join the conversation on the Citi Breakfast Show on Facebook.